Okay, guys, if you will, in your table of contents, I have yet to do this. I'm on page 35, and today we're going to talk about graphing and writing linear equations. Okay, once you have that written, go ahead and flip to the page you need to be on. And I'm going to need you to pause to go ahead and write this. You have two little cutouts today, and I would like to show you how I did this, so give me 1 second. I just took the piece of paper that says by slope intercept, and I trimmed the sides and the bottom off of it. I left everything at the top. And then for the other one that has like the diagrams at the bottom, I did the exact same thing. I trimmed the sides and the bottom off, but I left the top so that way I can get it in my notebook. So go ahead and pause and write that. And if you'll grab the paper that says by slope intercept. Okay, so if you've written your few steps, the first thing that you need to know is that you must put this in slope intercept form. That means it must be in y equals mx plus b. Once it's in y equals mx plus b, you're going to plot the y-intercept first. And since it's the y-intercept, you always put it on the y-axis. And then you're going to use the slope, which we call rise over run, to create more points to connect the line. So if you look, your very first problem, it is negative x plus 3. So you got to find m and you got to find b. Well, m is the number in front of x. So m is negative 1. But when I'm doing slope, I like to have a fraction, so I put it over 1. B is 3. Remember, anytime you create a fraction, as long as you're just putting it over 1, it doesn't change the value. So now that you have this, the very first thing that you are going to do is B is 3. You start with your slope intercept. So you're going to go to 0, 0, and you're always going to plot on the y-axis first. So I went to 3 and put a point. Now, negative 1 over 1. Remember, this is your rise over your run. Okay, so rise, negative 1 actually tells me I'm going to go down because rise is up or down, and positive 1 tells me I'm going to go right. So from the dot that I already drew, I'm just going to go down 1, right 1. So down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. You're going to get a few points in there, and then once you have about 3 to 4 points, you're going to need your ruler today. So go ahead and take your ruler, which they're in the calculator caddies, by the way, and connect your line, put arrows on both ends, and you now have your line according to this y equals negative x plus 3. Okay, going across, now we have 3x minus 4. The first thing I'm going to look for is my m, which my m is my slope, and my slope is 3, but I like to have it as a fraction, so over 1, and my b is negative 4. I'm going to start with my y-intercept. That's the first thing I plot, and it's down 4. My 3 over 1 is telling me to go up 3 and then right 1. So from my dot, I'm going to go up 3, right 1. And then I'm going to repeat up 3, right 1. Up 3, right 1. That's as many dots as I can get. So now I take my ruler and I connect and draw my straight line. I like straight, pretty lines, so make sure you're using a ruler. And I move on to the next example. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 1. The first thing I'm going to look for is my m, which is negative 3 over 4. And the y-intercept is 1. So we're going to start with the y-intercept at 1 because we always start with the y-intercept. Negative 3 tells me to go down 3, and 4 tells me to go right. So I'm going to go down 3, right 4. Okay, now I can only get one point that way. So to get some more points, if you go back to the original and do the opposite of what those arrows say, so I'm going to go up 3 and left 4. Now those points are still in a straight line to where you can put your ruler on here, draw your line, put your arrows because it goes forever. Okay, for this example, y equals x minus 4. Remember there's a 1 there, so m equals 1 over 1, and b equals negative 4. So I'm going to start down at 4, and 1 over 1 tells me to rise 1 and go right 1. So from my dot, I'm going to go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. You can go all the way across and get all of the dots, or once you have 3 to 4, it's enough. Take your ruler, draw your straight line. Okay, so y equals 2/3 x minus 1. My m is 2/3. That means I'm going to be going up 2 and right 3. And my b is -1. Okay, I'm going to start on the y-axis at -1 because that's what my b tells me to do. And from here, I'm going up 2 and right 3. If you notice, you can't repeat that because I run out of boxes. So go back to the original dot and do the opposite. Instead of up 2, down 2. Instead of right 3, left 3. And now you have your 3 dots, so you can take your ruler, connect your line. Okay, for the last one, this one likes to fool people. Y equals 4x. My m is 4, and I like fractions, so over 1. So I'm going to go up 4 and then right 1. My b, I don't have 1, so it's 0. You're going to start in the origin. So I'm going to put my dot at 0, 0, and I'm going to go up 4, right 1. I can only get 1 dot that way, so I'm going to go back to the original and do the opposite. Down 4, left 1. Connect my 2 dots, 3 dots, put my arrows. Okay, on the back, the difference is they gave you standard form, so what you have to do is this true step 1, put it in slope intercept. This is what we practiced the other day. So you're going to move the x by changing the sign. That gives me 2y equals -x plus 4. Divide by the number in front of y, so y equals, remember, there is a -1 here. So -1 divided by 2 is -1/2. Keep x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. My slope is now -1/2, which tells me to go down 1 and right 2. And my y-intercept is 2. So I'm going to, sorry, that was crooked. I'm going to go to 2 on the y-axis, and from here I'm going down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. That gives me 3 dots, and like I said, 3 dots is plenty. So I'm going to take my ruler, line it up to my 3 dots, draw my arrows on my line. Now I have 5x minus y equals -5. This one can trick you if you're not paying close attention, so move the x by changing the sign. That gives me a -y, and if you need to know that, that's a -1y equals -5x plus 5. Sorry, not plus 5. That is a -5 because those two things don't combine. Now you just have to divide by the number in front of y. And when you divide by a -1, all it does is change your sign, so you have a 5x plus a 5. So my slope is the number in front of x, so I have 5 over 1. That means up 5, right 1. And my y-intercept is 5. So I'm going to start at 5. Well, if I'm starting at 5, I definitely can't go up 5. So I have to do the complete opposite of my arrows. I'm going to go down 5, right 1. Left 1, down 5, left 1. Get in my arrows, draw and connect my line. Okay, for the next one, I have 9x minus 12y equals 12. Move the x by changing the sign. That gives me -12y equals -9x plus 12. Divide by the number in front of y. So now I have y equals, -9 cannot divide by -12, but it can simplify. So if you want to just put it in your calculator, you can do -9 divided by -12 and then hit math, enter, enter, which gives me 3/4 x, and 12 divided by -12 is -1. So my slope is 3/4, which means I'm going up 3 and right 4, and my y-intercept is -1. I'm going to start the y-intercept at -1, and I'm going to go up 3 and right 4. But I can only get 1 point that way, so I'm going to go back to the original and do the opposite and go down 3, left 4. Grab my ruler, draw my line. Okay, for 3x plus y equals 0, you're going to move the x by changing the sign. That gives me y equals -3x, and you don't need to write plus 0. Since y is positive, you have y by itself. So your m is -3/1, which means we're going down 3 and right 1. And your y-intercept, since you don't have one, is 0. So you start at the origin, and we go down 3, right 1. But I can't repeat that, so I go back to the original, and I'm going to go up 3, left 1. Grab my ruler, connect my line. Okay, 2 more of this style. I have 2x plus y equals 5. So I'm going to move the x by changing the sign. And that gives me y equals -2x plus 5. Since y is by itself, your slope is -2/1, which means we're going down 2 and right 1. And your y-intercept is 5. So we're going to start up here at 5 on the y-axis, and we are going to go down 2 and right 1. Down 2 and right 1, down 2 and right 1. 3 to 4 points is plenty. Take your ruler, connect your dots, draw your line. Okay, last example for this style, we have 4x plus 3y equals 12. So I'm going to subtract 4x, move the x by changing the sign. That gives me 3y equals -4x plus 12. Now I must divide by the number in front of y, so I get y equals, you cannot do -4 divided by 3, so leave -4/3 x, but you can do 12 divided by 3, which gives you 4. So in my slope position is -4/3, which means I'm going down 4 and right 3, and in my y-intercept position is a 4. So I'm going to start at 4, but now I'm going down 4, right 3. Well, you can't get another dot going that way, and you can't get a dot going the other way. So on this one, it is okay to just get 2 dots because that is all you can fit. Now, before I move off of this, I want to show you a quick self-check. If you look, your slope is negative. You better make sure your line is negative. So if you have a negative slope, your line has to go downhill. If you have a positive slope, your line has to go uphill. If it does not match, you're doing something wrong. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to glue this one on this page, but I'm going to glue in just a minute, and we're going to flip to the back. And I need you to go ahead and do writing and write these 2 steps. So pause real quick and do that. And this one goes by super fast. So we're going to take the other cutout. The first thing you have to do is identify the slope and the y-intercept. You need to write the information in slope-intercept form. So once you find m and once you find b, you just plug it into y equals mx plus b. So you can see your examples on here, the dots. You need m and you need b. Okay, m, start at your left dot, and you're going to rise 2 and run 5. So your slope is 2/5, and your y-intercept is crossing the y-axis at 2. So once you have those 2 pieces of information, you're going to just take y equals, we're going to plug m in, so 2/5 x plus 2. So plugging in m, plugging in b, everything else stays the same. Okay, for the second one, I need to find my slope and my y-intercept. I'm going to start at the left dot. I have to go down 3 and right 1. -3/1 can simplify to -3. Remember, you always want to simplify. And that is crossing the y-axis at 1. So I'm going to do y equals, my m we found out was -3, keep x, and it's a plus 1 because slope is y-intercept is a positive 1. Okay, for the next one, m and b, my m I'm going to rise 3, and I'm going to run 2. That can't simplify, so I'm going to leave it alone. My y-intercept is crossing right here at +3. So I have y equals 3/2x plus 3. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to do my slope and my y-intercept. This time I start the left dot. I have to move down 2, and we move right 3. Okay, your y-intercept is down below 0 this time, so your y-intercept is -2. You put in y equals -2/3 x minus 2. You can do plus negative, but minus is just easier. Okay, my next example, starting at my left dot, I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4 over running 4. And 4 over 4 simplifies to 1. Okay, my y-intercept is down here at -3. So my equation is y equals 1x minus 3. Or you could just do x minus 3, whichever way you want to do it. For my next one, my slope, starting at the left dot, I'm going to rise 2. And I'm going to run 1. And 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2. My y-intercept is up here at 4. So I put y equals 2x plus 4. Flipping to the back of these, you got 2 more of these, and then you just have to read through and see which answer choices make sense for the next 2. Okay, so starting with my slope, you have to drop. So you're going down 3, and you're running 3, and -3 over 3 amounts to -1. The y-intercept is right at 0. So I'm going to have y equals -1x, and you don't write plus 0, or you can have y equals -x, whichever way you want to write it. Okay, the last one like this. My m, I'm going to rise 1, and I'm going to run 2. That does not simplify, so I'm going to leave it alone. And my y-intercept is down here at -4. So I have y equals 1/2 x minus 4. Okay, for the next 2 examples, these are just multiple choice. You're going to see something similar to this. Which graph represents the line of 1/3 x minus 2? Well, it helps you to know that your slope is 1/3, which means you're going up 1 and right 3, and that your y-intercept is -2. So this is the easiest thing to look for. You're looking for a graph that starts at down 2. Well, A does not start at down 2. B does not start at down 2. C does start at down 2, and so does D. So now you're looking for the graph between C and D on which one rises 1. So here's -2. I want to rise 1, and I want to run 3. When you do that, the line's not there. So it doesn't look like C is going to be my answer. For D, I'm going to rise 1, and I'm going to run 3. And look, I stayed on my line, so D is my answer. Okay, for the next question, which best represents the equation of the line? Find your y-intercept first. That's the easiest thing to do. Your y-intercept is -1. Well, that didn't eliminate any answer choices for you. Bummer. Since they didn't give you any other dots, you can find any dot you want to find, but it has to go through a perfect intersection. So you could have a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, or a dot here. Wherever you want to look at. I'm going to stick with the one that I started with at -1, and I'm going to move to the one to the right. So I'm going to have to drop 2 and run 1. And -2 over 1 is -2. So if I plug in y equals mx plus b, I get -2x minus 1, which C is the answer that matches that. Okay, so now that we have the notes done, you're going to try your own worksheet, but let me show you how I'm going to glue this in first. I'm going to take, with this page, the side that has the graphs, I'm going to put a strip of glue up here at the top. And I'm going to glue that in right under those few instructions I gave to where I could still fold it up and look at my examples that are right there. So it's a little foldable one. Now I'm going to go back to the page on the front, and I'm going to do the exact same. I'm not going to do the slope intercept side. I'm going to flip it to the back where I can see by standard form. I'm going to take my glue and put a little strip up here at the top, and I'm going to glue it right beneath that step 4 so I can still see step 4. And it kind of sticks out just a little bit at the bottom. So you can fold it up like this if you want. So that way you can just flip and go from there. So I'm going to have 2 folds. So that way I can flip it up and see it. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.